Damn.
What's up, ladies and gents? Welcome to another travel nursing debriefing here.
How much weeks do you have left?
3 weeks.
3 weeks. And you're heading back, huh?
I'm heading back home. I'm not extending. Even though San Diego has my heart, it's time to go back home and hang out with the fam. On the other hand, what are you doing?
I'm chilling right here. I don't want to be anywhere else. Maybe looking for some roommates. You know, shout out to anybody that needs a roommate. Maybe I'll be looking for one like in July. So we'll see how it goes.
And that's a fun transition with travel nursing. So when you're about to end your contract, you either go to a new location, you could go back home like I'm doing, or you can extend like Pete. And in your situation, there's just a lot going on, right? What's going on as far as extending?
Yeah, so it's a little bit of a process. It's just basically like you get a new contract. So I gotta find new housing because we have a three bedroom place that we live in right now, and of course you and Luke are leaving, so I don't need a 3-bedroom place. Nor do I want to pay this much for the space that I don't need. So housing is number one. Number two is contract. So it's the summer months. Pay tends to be a little bit lower, so I definitely took a little bit of a pay cut, which is okay because I'm still getting paid fairly decently. I can still afford all my monthly expenses, rent, and all that kind of stuff. So I did take a hit, but I'm financially still well off. And luckily, they renewed me because I wasn't sure if they're going to renew me because it's kind of hit or miss. And I asked a little bit earlier just to be safe, and I wasn't really getting a response. And then I talked to the manager because first I talked to my recruiter. He reached out, didn't really get a response from the AMN that he reached out to and the manager. So then I talked to my manager again. I texted, I talked to her, and then she said that, yeah, they're going to extend me. Because I was a little bit worried because of all these other travel nurses that we work with. A lot of them were getting their extension like approved or agreed on or notified a week before their contract ended. And that would have been tough because 7 days before a contract expires is really risky on getting renewed because, like I said, I got to find housing. I'm not going to stay here anymore because y'all are leaving. But it worked out for the best. Luckily, I got the extension that I wanted, so I'm going to be here till about the end of August. I love San Diego. This is kind of where my heart is. Maybe I'll eventually stay here forever, but we'll see.
Yeah, and I also acquired about a peer DM option, so that's something you could do as well, where you might work 3 or 4 shifts a month, or it can be 10 shifts in a quarter, what they do. A lot of nurses do it in the Bay Area, in like Cali, NorCal, and other places where you could fly in from out of state. You could work your 3 shifts, 4 shifts that month, or some people group them up and do like 4, 5, 6, fly back home, and they could work their staff job. In this specific location, the schedule is already bad for staff. The schedule is already bad for travelers. So you would only expect it to be bad for this. So the kicker is there. It doesn't work out for a lot of people working out of state because what if you have to work 1 shift and wait to work another one? So there's just not a consistency for you to be able to group your shifts and do that. So that option fell off.
And it's very important because, yeah, like you said, if it's not consistent, what are you even doing for those extra days?
Especially if you have a staff job.
Yeah, and it's a really good idea. I'm glad you brought that up because I feel like a lot of people don't know about this. The PRN jobs where some people work 2 PRN jobs. They work a PRN job in their state where they live in, and then they do one in California because California pays a lot more than any other state. So it's a lot more financially sound to do that and just fly in because the amount of money that you're going to make is going to cover the costs, and you could probably do a hotel for a couple of days that's really cheap, or a motel, or just stay at like a friend's house or whoever you know in the area. And Bay Area pays very well, so a lot of nurses do that. And if you are looking for something like that, Bay Area is definitely a place to look at because, like, think about it. You could probably just working in the Bay Area those 3 days a month will probably get you maybe like 2 weeks worth of money. I feel like in Illinois,
I'm sure you could clock in at least $1,000 a shift if you play your cards right.
Right.
The pay rate is high.
Yeah, super affordable. So if you don't want to work full time as a nurse, maybe you could just do 2 PRN jobs. One just where you live locally, just for convenience and just for that financial support, and then just making money in California. So you would work a total of 6 shifts.
And there's that nurse that we met in LA where he travels back to Austin and he does his PRN job there because that's what he's contracted with, and he just flies in between contracts. So if you're a hustler out there, want to do all that option is out there too. When it comes to traveling, the amount of money you can make is limited. It's just what you want to do.
Yeah, or even, I know there's like these big contracts going on that require you to work 6 days a week. That one nurse that we met in Santa Monica that we also met again in Austin, instead of doing one contract that requires him to do 6 shifts, he does 2 contracts, 3 shifts each. And that he said he saves him a lot of money on taxes because it doesn't jump into your overtime tax rate or whatever like the financials is, but that's a lot more affordable because it looks nice on paper. You see 6 shifts and you bring in thousands of dollars, but that's your pre-tax income. So after the taxes come out, you get a substantial chunk of that taken off. And if you work if you work 2 contracts and just do your 36 hours, which is not tossed into your overtime rate, then you're making a better financial decision. But then of course, if you have a place like ours that doesn't really care about our schedules, you can't do that because you can't be 2 places at once. So you have to really negotiate and figure that kind of stuff out.
Exactly.
But how was your shifts?
Pretty good. Before we start that, by the way, guys, we got some dope merch that Peter's wearing a little ICU cup shirt. I'm doing the Telly one because that's where I float a lot. And these are going to be our unit shirts that we have on cupofnurses.shop if you want to try to snag one.
I feel like you show the back, dude. We got to show the back. Yeah, there you go. Look at that. That's so cool. It's Telly and it's a heart. And you got all these Telly terms on there. Syncope, AFib, heart block. All in a cool heart. Badass shirt. And then I got the ICU one.
Do a spin. For the ICU fans out there, that is a bottle of propofol, one of our favorite medications. It is the mother's milk is what we call it, because when a patient is not acting right, they're on the vent, bucking the vent, give a little bit of mother's milk, we put them to night-night. Yeah. Not exactly like that, but awesome medication. So yeah, snag those on cupofnurses.shop. Shifts have been interesting. I've learned random things that have been going on. I had an interesting case where last shift I talked about a chemo reaction. This time the patient got the chemo, came 2 days later for tumor lysis syndrome. So lactic's elevated and she just the tumor is dissolving and it's just creating a bunch of issues where she went into acute kidney injury. Yep. And she already had 1 kidney to begin with. So we're, multiple myeloma, we're trying to save this person's life and it kind of backfires and goes into so much more issues. Sepsis, was on pressors. Unfortunately, they even put a central line in, embolized, had a hematoma, a lot of stuff that the family was upset about. And now she needs to get permanent dialysis, even though we're trying to save her. So again, like, what's the balance there between the quality of life? So that situation was interesting.
Yeah, working in oncology or getting floated there a couple of times, it's not for me, man. Like, I just get sad because like in ICU, everyone's in like the brink of death, but you can still bring them back. And I feel like in oncology, it's just inevitable.
It's going that route.
Yeah, like it's going that route, and that light's gonna flicker away. Compared to ICU, if you could stabilize and get them better, they could still almost return to back how they were normally. But oncology is definitely a little tough.
Yeah, and the last shift, I had a case where we don't have a cath lab in this hospital. Strange, I know. So if the ambulance are trying to route there, you probably should go somewhere else for the STEMI.
Yeah, and they couldn't even do an ERCP either.
Yes.
That's interesting too,
They had to go to the other San Diego facility for that. So we're very, very medical. But what this hospital does is, well, they're smart for one. They have their own ambulance service, so they're not paying a large fee. And they have a contract with another hospital that we set up an appointment and we ship them out in the morning for that. It was a little bit of a headache because you have to prepare like a CD, files, print out the latest MAR, give the 9 o'clock meds. This guy was on STEMI, so a heparin drip. I drew labs too early. PTT was high. I had to explain why because they gave a bolus like 2 hours before. And you're just preparing the patient in the morning to leave. So there was a whole checklist that you have to do. You have to call the cath lab, try to call the supervisor, then you call cath lab for a report and do that transition. So that was kind of cool to see what happens there.
It definitely processed.
Yeah. Man. How about you?
It was pretty good. It was actually interesting because my shifts were spread out. So I remember on Sunday I had a patient, and I had that same patient in the ICU. So I had that patient in a step down, and then I had that patient in the ICU on Thursday. So it was interesting because what was going on with him is he initially came for altered mental status, ETOH withdrawal, all that kind of stuff. He was off the ATOH, he was off the CWAP protocol when I got him, but he was very uptunded. He was just kind of declining them for the day shift, and he was just declining slowly, but not quick enough for us to kind of escalate the care. So when I had him, he required frequent suctioning, but the thing is he had an NG tube in his nair, and we couldn't get the suction catheter through his through his other nostril to do like the nasopharyngeal suctioning. So what I ended up doing is going through his mouth because he had so much secretions, and we had to get him out because he had a very, very weak cough, and you could hear him building there.
Gargling, yeah.
Yes, and that's like the worst thing because it's almost like he's choking on his secretions, and he was still like obtunded, kind of lethargic, and he kept biting down. So what I had to do was I had to stick a yanker in his mouth and pry his mouth open to get that suction catheter
just to get a
down.
suction him.
Yeah, it was rough. But I suctioned him probably like I want to say 8 times.
It's gnarly what you're doing, but it's all in good faith because you're trying to prevent this guy from drowning in his sputum.
Yeah, and it's like he's obtunded and stuff, so I'm not sure if he understands English. I know he has a Spanish last name, so I was like on Google Translate trying to like read off to him words in Spanish. I wasn't sure if he speaks Spanish or English, and I was holding the yanker in his mouth, suctioning him, and it was a whole process. Then I was chasing his potassium as well, so he was a very busy guy, and I got him at around midnight, and like I said, I suctioned him like at least 8 times, so like twice an hour I was suctioning, which is a crazy amount. And then they started him on tube feeds, and his abdomen was really distended. So low-key, I didn't increase the tube feeds per protocol. I kind of left them as is, like a trickle, because I was like, if he's this distended, maybe like we shouldn't probably push these tube feeds this quickly. But he was super distended. And then when I got him back on Thursday, he was intubated. He declined. I guess they did like a colonoscopy, and he kind of declined from there. He became acidotic. I had to put him on bicarb. He became hypotensive. They had to start him on levo, and then he became super tacky. So I had to switch him over to neo, and I placed the pick. So I got him kind of after that whole ordeal went down, and like I kind of had an idea that he's going to decompensate. I did kind of address it, but it wasn't like super critical at that point. So I guess over the next couple of days he kind of went south pretty quick. But yeah, when I had him in the ICU, I had him for 2 days. I had him Wednesday and Thursday technically, or Thursday and Friday, whatever the days were. And it was cool because the first day I had him, he was not responsive to anything. And then I slowly, over 2 shifts, he slowly kind of came back to. They weren't sure what was going on, so they did a lumbar puncture, they did a bunch of cultures, they did an EEG. Everything was negative. They couldn't figure out, or CT of the head was also negative. They couldn't figure out why he's not responding to anything. And I feel like what happened was that since he required that high amount of suctioning, it was probably affecting his respiratory rate, which probably was making him slowly acidotic. And every day since Monday, he became slowly more and more acidotic until they had to intubate him, and then his pH was 6.9. So that's what I'm thinking why his mental status declined was just because of the acidosis, not necessarily like a stroke or some kind of other underlying cause, but which was cool. So once you started getting his pH up, he started coming to. He started getting pain reflexes back. He got his cough and gag back slowly. Then he started slowly opening his eyes, and then it was cool because the last night I had him, in the beginning of my shift he wasn't able to move his arms, but then slowly he moved them to like his stomach, and then he like moved them up to his chest, and like he slept like this, where his arms were crossed and intubated, and it was like because like you don't see.
It's nice
like
seeing the progression of care,
especially
when you
here.
Have same patients.
Yeah, especially here when you float almost every shift, it's hard for you to keep up with a continuum of care with the patients. And this was like the first time in a while where I had the same patient for 2 days straight and actually seen them improve.
Yeah,
and it was very rewarding.
I'm actually peeking at your notes, and I took care of the same lady when we were talking about the ERCP. But it's wild why she got intubated, because when I was looking at all those notes, they gave her 4.5 liters of fluids in the ER because of the lactic. And then this is why the septic protocol like sucks a little bit, because you fluid overload the patient so much, you go into flash pulmonary edema, and you need to get intubated for that. And like with her, I had her when she was intubated, because she had the pancreatitis, we couldn't do propofol because the LFT. So she was just on Precedex, and they were just giving me fentanyl and Versed pushes. And that's the lady that was going every hour trying to freaking do pushes with her. Even downstairs when I went to go down for a CT scan, I had to go do pushes. Interesting. Because all I had was a Precedex drip on her.
Because I had the night prior her getting extubated, and she was on nothing, and she was super relaxed.
Yep. So the day before, calm. But not for my shift.
When you had it was like day and night. When you had her, because I was working with you at that shift, you were in there like all the time. And when I had her, she was completely fine. She helped me turn. She was 1 assist, but she was intubated. She was able to mouth words. She was able to tell me everything. Didn't have her in restraint. She was chilling. Yeah, whole different lady, man.
I'm kind of laughing too because her husband came and we were talking, and this guy's an old Navy vet. The conversations you have are amazing in the hospital. He was a minesweeper during World War.
It's true.
During the Vietnam War, where he was stationed, he was supposed to go to Vietnam, never made it, and we're just talking about sweeping mines, and he was just telling me how they were detonating mines.
Damn, that's a trip.
Yeah, another cool little experience I had is a patient with necrotizing fasciitis. Usually, when we have them, they decompensate very quick. They go into sepsis, and the same day that this guy had the necrotizing fasciitis, they gave him a BKA. And then 2 days later, the wound wasn't healing. He was still septic, and they did a above the knee amputation just for one little small wound that you neglect that you thought was going to get better and just turns into a flesh-eating bacteria, right?
Damn, yeah. Basically, damn. Yeah, and plus, if you don't get it like at the source, it's going to keep going. That's crazy. Yeah, my last shift that I did, probably the busiest shift I had in a super long time. I had a DKA patient. We talked about DKA last debriefing too, so it was a good refresher. But this patient came in with a sugar of 1400, and the thing is, these glucometers don't read if it's above 600. So instead of finger sticks, we were doing serum glucose checks.
Just send it down.
Yeah, and you know how with labs, so if I send it down at 1 o'clock, they also don't come back till like 1:30, 1:45. So it was kind of frustrating because it's a delay of care, and I feel like the physician didn't understand that. Because I feel like he was getting a little bit like frustrated, like why am I calling him so late? And I had to let him know that, hey, like I'm drawing this at 1, but realize the lab has to process this, so it's not gonna get processed till like 1:30, so it's kind of slowed down. And the issue was his sugar was coming down too quick, so it went from 1400 to 1100 to then 700 to 500, and you can't have it. You should only be going down by around 100 each time, because if you go down too quick, you could get cerebral edema. So your brain gets filled with fluid, and that's not compatible with life. You could have like a
herniation.
Herniation. You have a brain injury, and you could potentially die. Which I understand. Like I was frustrated just the same as he was, but nothing we could do about it. And the patient was in restraints and going wild the whole night. So that was a whole different process. Now I'm thinking, what if he was super confused and going wild because he was getting some cerebral edema going on?
You just never know.
And we just damn, that kind of would make sense, because he was like batshit crazy, and maybe that's what it was. But before he came in, he was completely fine.
And we just call it delirium, but we don't know the source of it.
Damn, now that I think about it, that was a smart physician, so maybe that's what was going on. Yeah, and then my other lady that I got before I handed off to her, she was a crazy case too. She was another CWA. I'm not gonna go into her story because it's a pretty specific story, so I don't want to review anything. But they gave 1,300 milligrams of phenobarbital at the ER alone, and I looked up what's like the threshold of phenobarbital in 24 hours. It's like 1,100. So this lady got more phenobarbital than you could supposedly take on in 24-hour period. She got that in like 3 to 6 hours.
Sometimes
That's wild.
She's got a tough system.
Yeah.
You got to put down.
And then she was still going kind of wild for them during the day once they transferred over. But at nighttime, the meds finally caught up to her, and she was very calm and very chill. And she went on like a binge. So she hasn't drank in a long time. And then whatever happened. She went on like a binge for, all she did was drink for an X amount of days straight. It was quite a bit of days where she didn't eat. She lost 10 pounds. And she told me she's never doing it again. She felt horrible. And it was just like she realized that she really messed up. But the thing is, she was still doped up on these medications. She wasn't like fully with it, but she was still pretty coherent. She was a very nice lady. Okay. Hope the best for her. But yeah, it was crazy. Like she was wild. She was wild now for sure.
And those are our night shifts in a nutshell. Hope you guys enjoyed these debriefings. Anything else you want to add on?
That's about it. Just enjoy your days, enjoy your nights. Just try to do everything you can for your patients.
And don't forget to cop these dope teas. Yep. See you guys on the next one.
So.